advice on investments or on
interest or financial instruments.
Financial instruments. This is just our experiences and what we know and what we think is going to be good to share. If you guys want to get in touch with us, feel free to call us on 01733 602 133 or text us on 07411 191 062. Or you can comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Plenty of options there.
Plenty of options. We are here to serve you. So any questions, feel free to get in touch. But last week, we started discussing different property strategies, didn't we?
We did indeed.
And we were discussing how there's a wide plethora of strategies out there. And we only managed to cover 3 last week. And we covered a bit about...
Is that because you talk too much?
Might have been because I talked too much. Might have been your fault.
Yeah.
It's possible.
So I made you talk too much.
Yeah.
So this
absolutely.
week, my job is to make sure you talk less.
But that means you're going to have to talk
even
more.
Less.
But that means you're going to have to talk more.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing, by the way. Yeah.
Well, it can't be any worse. Yeah. But if you want to just give us a quick overview on the basics of a buy-to-let, and we'll just quickly cover off what we covered last week in very shorthand, and then we'll get on to the new strategies for this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So buy-to-let, simply speaking, is where most people start. So people may have heard the term accidental landlord. So somebody owns a home, they live in it, they then want to move to a bigger or a smaller house or a home, and then they end up keeping the first one that they had, and they end up renting it out. Okay, by chance, that wasn't the intention many years ago, so that makes them a landlord. Or somebody has a house and then they think, I want to invest some of my money into property because it seems like a good, safe, sound investment. So they do so and they buy their first property, which generally tends to be a buy-to-let for most people, and it's a single let where they're letting it out to one particular family. And how it simply works is they find a property, put an offer on, put an offer forward. If it's accepted, they go to a solicitor, and then if they're funding it through a bank, they'll usually put down at least a 25% deposit, get some bank funding by way of a mortgage, and then go through the legal process, buy the property, rent it out, and it's as simple as that.
Fantastic. Very straightforward then.
Easy peasy.
But what about our next one, which we discussed, was HMOs.
HMOs are more interesting. So this is when somebody has a bit more confidence and they're thinking about, I'm investing money in property. Am I getting the best return I can? How can I improve my cash flow? What other options are there? I'm renting to one single family. What if I rent to individuals? The property is large enough, or they buy, let's say, a 3-bedroom property and it's a corner plot, for example. So they think I can extend on the side, which where you usually can on corner plots. Not always the case, but you quite often you can.
Quite often.
Or they can extend to the back, so they extend it and turn it into 5 separate rooms, and then rent each room to individuals, which gives them more cash flow. So if that 3 or 4 or 5 bedroom property could be rented for anywhere for, let's say, from £800 to £1,500 a week, depending on the area you're in, per room, they might get £100 to £125 per room. So the cash flow is nearly double, if not sometimes 3 times as much. So that works well. You've got challenges in terms of where the property is, and if you've got tenants who perhaps aren't the type of tenants you're looking for, the neighbours might not be happy, then there's particular areas, but let's talk about Peterborough for now, where you've got lots of HMOs, so people aren't happy because they don't get to know their neighbours, and different people come in and there's 5 people living in a house and people having possibly
lots
parties
of coming and going.
They just feel like they don't know who they are. Antisocial behaviour could be a challenge. And by the way, not all HMOs are equal. Some I've seen, as you know, managed extremely well because they've got the right type of tenant, but that can be an issue. But an HMO as a strategy is a really good strategy. It just needs managing. So put it this way, it's like buying a pet or having a pet from somebody who's had a pet for, let's say, a year. They change their mind and say, I've got a cat or a kitten or a dog or a puppy, and I can't look after it now. Here you go, Kieron, you take over, and the puppy's been reasonably well trained. It's nice and easy. Compared to, and this is how I see it, by the way, is somebody says to you, I went to Africa, for example, and I've got this wild dog. Here you go, Kieran. Look after the wild dog.
That's not a dog. That's a hyena.
But that's for later, by the way. For now, sold to you as a dog. Okay, and then you're trying to manage and look after that pet, who's never been a pet, who likes to be a free bird, so to speak, and you're trying to train it. It's difficult, and that might not be the best analogy to use, but that's what an HMO is like in compared to a single let. It requires more time, effort, energy, enthusiasm, and management. And as long as you've got somebody who can do that for you by way of an agent, or you can do it yourself, it works really well. But it comes with the responsibility and
All about
consequences.
having the time and the responsibility.
That's right.
Yeah. And the final thing we covered, and we did kind of rush it towards the end, was SA, serviced accommodation. And we dipped a little bit into the difference between serviced accommodation and furnished holiday lets.
So service accommodation has become very, very popular over the last, I'd say, 7 to 10 years. More so the last, I think about 2015, 2016, it started really kind of gaining traction with Airbnb and Booking.com. So this
Made it so much more accessible for people.
They have, and it's competitive. So somebody who was or is booking a room in a hotel, depending again on where they're looking to stay, because obviously if you're in central London, the price is very different to booking a room in Leeds, for example. But let's say it's costing them £80 for a room in a particular area, and you could book into a service accommodation unit or apartment, and it'll cost you half the price, possibly. Okay, so it's become more accessible, more competitive, and it works well. This is basically where somebody takes a property, converts it into service accommodation, which for all intents and purposes, we'll just say a bed and breakfast.
Yeah.
You don't have to give breakfast, by the way, but quite a few people do. Some do, some don't. And so people rent.
Does that count as like cereal in the cupboard?
It could do if you're giving people a healthy breakfast and living. I've only ever used it once, believe it or not, when I was in Brighton, but we get a very personal service. So I arrived there with a friend of mine, and we were greeted by the people who actually live in the house, husband and wife, and she sat, as in the wife sat with us for half an hour to get to know us. We had a good chat, told us where we can go locally, asked if we want some food, tea and coffee, showed us where the bedroom was in the morning or the night before, asked us what we wanted in terms of our preference for breakfast. It was a really good personal service.
That makes a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely. Because I mean, a hotel is different. You check in, and they tell you where your room is, and then off you go. So this was really good. But it's like a bed and breakfast. So let's compare. So single let, you're renting the whole house or property for, let's say, £1,000 to £1,500. HMO, 3 to 5 people, for example. It can be a different number. I've seen big HMOs, by the way, 10, 15, 20. And
you need a big house for that.
It's a big property. Usually a commercial property converted into an HMO. And then you got service accommodation, where it's a room by the night. And the cash flow on a service accommodation unit, if in the right area, marketed well, maintained well with a good service, you can make 4 times what you make on an HMO. So an HMO, like I said, makes anywhere between 2 to 3 times on average what a single let makes. Service accommodation, if done properly in the right area, can make 2 to 4 times as much as an HMO. Okay?
So we're looking at that 8-10 times more than a standard buy-to-let.
10 to 12. But again, comes with the responsibility and costs, because now you're changing the beds regularly. You might be supplying food, other services, cleaning, etc., done properly and regularly, maintained to a very different level, a higher standard. You need a different mortgage for it. You're possibly paying business rates. It is a business for all intents and purposes. So are the other two, by the way, but sometimes people don't see those other two as businesses, whereas SA they do. Then you've got other issues, which I'm not going to go into today, about VAT and taxation, which are different.
That's a whole different ballgame.
That's a whole different ballgame, which we'll cover at some point. But service accommodation really is a game changer, and it's a beautiful, beautiful property strategy. And so if somebody wants to get into property and they're a bit more ambitious than most, I'd say start with service accommodation.
And just for people's information out there, and it's just something to be aware of, buy-to-lets, HMOs come under an investment, whereas serviced accommodation as a business is a trading business. And it's good to do some research into the difference between the two.
Absolutely, because most people can't get their head around trading and investment for tax purposes. They have different tax consequences or benefits, and allowances and reliefs and exemptions. So you've got two kind of tiers or layers to service accommodation. And one is what where it's furnished or day let, so the type of stuff you'd see at Blackpool or Cornwall or Dorset or Devon or those type of areas, Cumbria. And then you've got full out service accommodation where it's like serviced apartments. But the word service means you're offering a further service and not just renting a room. So service accommodation would be treated as a trade. Furnished or day lets, you've got to meet the rules for it to actually qualify for certain trading benefits. So the actual property has to be available for commercial letting for 210 days. Number two, you have to actually let it out for 105 days. Number three, if it's rented out for more than 31 days in a row, i.e. 32 days or longer, to any one party, and if those 32 days add up to 155 days in a year, then you lose furnished or day let rules. So basically,
And it becomes a short hold tenancy.
it becomes a short hold tenancy and it has all different types of connotations. So if you rent out a room to one person for 32 days and repeat that 5 times to 5 different people, then you've gone to 160 days. You're going to lose furnished or day let.
Excellent. And that, and that in a nutshell is what we covered last week. So this week, three more strategies. New week, new strategies. So we're going to start off with. I'm going to couple 2 strategies together here.
That's nice of you.
I know. I'm a good individual, but mainly because the difference between the two of them comes down to what you do at the end, and that is buy to sell or buy, refurbish, refinance. Very similar strategies overall. You start the same, you maintain the same during the process of refurbishing the property, and then it just comes to the end whether you're selling or refinancing.
So buy to sell, are we talking about property flipping here?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So what does property flipping mean, Kieran?
Property flipping is the process by which you attempt to, and I say attempt to because it's not always doable, buy a property below market value or within your own budget that you've worked out once you've done all the numbers.
So what does below market value mean?
So if you go onto your property sites or go into an estate,
Rightmove or wherever,
Rightmove, Zoopla, Purple Bricks, places like that, or go into an estate agents, and there are many in Peterborough. There are many,
around the country.
Around the country, and each of them will be in each of those places will be able to tell you the average value of a property in a certain area, a certain road, a certain
district,
postcode, and you take that price, and the idea is to get a house or a property below that price. That will be below the market value that the market has set for the property. And once you've purchased the property below market value, you then spend some money refurbishing it, doing it up, making it look nice, making it either sellable or refinanceable for somebody to move into. Once you've done that, you then revalue the property. Hopefully the property value's increased, and once that's done, you can either, like I say, refinance and get a mortgage on the property, pull some of your money back out to continue the process again, or flip the property, which is what we're talking about here, where you've made the money on, you've sold the property, you then sell the property for more than the cost of the initial property, the legal fees and all the other fees that go with buying a property and selling a property, and the cost of the refurb.
So the trick is to buy below market value and make sure you keep the cost down.
Absolutely.
So if we were to run through an example, a property in a particular area is worth, let's say, £250,000. You negotiate a deal with somebody, and there's different ways to do this, by the way. It's not always through agents. For, let's say, £175,000, but it needs some work doing to it. You then do the work, and let's say you spend £45,000 doing the work on it. Okay.
Yep.
So that's costing you £220,000. And let's just say some of the other legals, SDLT, whatever else, just for this example, by the way, because I haven't worked it out, it's another £10,000. So you've spent £230,000, but because you've done the property up quite nicely, even though the property in that area sell for £250,000, because yours is done to a higher standard is worth a bit more. And let's say it's worth 265,000, so 15,000 more because you spent 45,000 pounds on it.
Yep.
So you sell it for 260. You bought it for 230, or sorry, 265. So you made a 35,000 pound gain, less any selling costs. Let's call that
Another
a couple of thousand. It
£5,000.
won't be that much, but okay, let's call it 5,000. If you
Call it 5,000 for the ease
you
of
made
ease of.
£30,000, and if you do it properly, you can do that within 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. And what other industry can you think of off the top of your head where you can make £30,000 in 6 months?
Part time,
Part-time.
because it's not going to be a full time job.
No, absolutely not. I mean, you look at, you've got to project manage it potentially, unless you've got a team in place and you're doing this on the regular. But if it's your first one, for example, and you're just doing a flip to get going, you invest your initial sum. You pay for the upkeep and the refurbishment of the property. Once all of that's done, you've got to project manage it. You've got to find traders. You've got to find people to do the work, and that in and of itself is your equity within the deal. But once you flip it, like you say, you can get that done in 6 months, and then move on to the next one. £30,000. Thank you very much.
Nice, isn't it?
It'd be nice if you could do one every 6 months, and with enough.
Why only one?
And that exactly. If you've got the energy and the experience for it and the enthusiasm for it, there's no reason you can't be working on 2, 3, even 4.
Absolutely.
If you communicate effectively and project manage competently, there's no reason you can't have 4 going at the same time.
It's all a process, isn't it?
It is all a process.
Once you learn the process,
Systemization.
and once you learn the process, know how it works, cut your teeth, so to speak, on the job. Anybody can do it. Really, anybody can do it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's something you just said there. Cut your teeth on the job. In every property strategy, regardless of whether you're doing any of the ones that we present here or any other strategy that we haven't covered, there's always going to be an entrance fee.
Yep.
And I think that is important to mention. You are going to make mistakes. No bones about it.
And they're going to cost you.
And they are going to cost you.
This is where I pull out my list and talk through it all, and then start crying, and you give me a Kleenex and calm down. Cheer up, Shaz. It's okay. It's gonna be okay in the end.
It'll be okay in the end, Shaz.
If it's not okay, it's not the end.
Exactly that. I mean, at some point we will go through our faults and our mistakes in a later show. But yeah, understand that there are two things that will almost always happen in every property deal if you're flipping to sell or getting work done. And what are they?
It's always going to cost you more than you think it will cost you, and so it always take longer than you think it's going to take.
Exactly that.
Guaranteed.
Think
Wembley Arena and think the Millennium Dome when it was built. Always cost a lot more and took a lot longer. That applies to most, if not all, deals.
Exactly that. It's just a matter of mitigating it as much as you can, but accepting what you can't change.
That's right, and just moving on.
And just moving on. Exactly that.
But property is kind to people. And I mean, as you know, she's been extremely kind to me and you, obviously. And it's been a wonderful journey.
Absolutely.
And that's why we're here, really, because we're passionate about sharing this with proper people. Say there's different ways, there's better ways of you doing this. And we want people to actually start believing and having the confidence that they can do it too.
Absolutely.
It's a life changer.
It absolutely changed my life. And I wouldn't be sat here extolling the virtues of it if I didn't truly believe in it, because that's not the sort of person that I am. And I think that it's, like you say, it is one of those things that it has been kind to both of us, and it will continue to be kind over the long term.
You mean all that money that I pay you to sit here doesn't count?
No, I take that for granted.
just so everybody's aware, Kieron doesn't get paid to be here.
No.
Yeah.
No, and nor does Shaz.
You do it for the love. Yeah, but it's just to give back to the community. Obviously, Faisal and Akil and everybody else said it'd be good to have a property show, and we said, well,
sure thing, why not?
We'd be delighted to have
We'd be absolutely happy.
Yeah, no, we are. And it's near our office here, so it's convenient to us, and it'd be nice to get some people to ask questions and engage. By the way, this we had last week. So we know that people are actually listening to us, and they want
and enjoying the content.
Getting the support and enjoying the content, because that's what really counts.
Yeah, because we're here to serve the community. We're
Absolutely.
not. anything else.
We have nothing to sell.
Well, apart from property on a buy to sell.
Absolutely, yeah, buy to sell. Yeah. So that's that bit there. And then if somebody's doing BRR, how's that different, Kieran?
So buy, refurbish, refinance, rent out is you follow exactly the same process. You try and buy below market value, but it's, in my opinion, less critical to buy below market value at this stage if you're going to refinance, as long as you can get the value of the property up when you refurbish it. So if you buy, say, to use your example, property that's worth £250,000, you buy it at the £170,000 mark that you said.
175, yeah.
175. You then refurbish it, £45,000. Well, okay, that's all well and good.
Like actually 220, think of the 10 grand purchase cost, 230.
230. But you then refinance it at 75% loan to value, as you would as a property investor. So you do that, and at the new value of 265, and I don't have a calculator right with me, so you'll have to help me here, Shaz. 75% of 265.
Yeah, so you'll need to leave about 70 odd grand in the deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, ballpark
roundabout.
Yeah.
But that's not bad for a first deal.
Yeah.
But then you have.
Well, put it this way. So let's say you put in £35,000 at the start. You've then added £35,000 worth of value. There's no way you're going to be able to buy a £265,000 property by putting down a £35,000 deposit. It's not going to happen because it's not 25%.
No, exactly
so
that.
You put down half, which is 12.5%. To get that property, so still it's very good, isn't it? And then you look at the monthly cash flow and the profit,
and that's what I was about to move on to, is that yes, you've left some money in the deal, but you now have cash flow. You've now got money coming in every month.
Yep.
Well, let's assume that you don't have to worry about voids and what have you.
Yep.
But still, we've had a question on Facebook from Faisal. Is it still possible to get property below market value in this economic environment? I would say absolutely.
There's always deals. So when the property market's buoyant, there's still deals. When the property markets are down and low, there's even more deals because different people are selling for different reasons. So let's say a couple are going through divorce. They just want a quick sale.
Yeah.
They've got a reason to sell. Let's say somebody's got quite a few debts to pay and he or she decide that we need to sell this property to pay off those debts and that's costing us too much money. They'll take a view on it and do a quick sale. Let's say somebody had a parent living in the property, they passed away, the property is empty, and they live in a different town or different city, and they think we don't really want to manage this, we just want a quick sale so we can get the cash, pay whatever inheritance tax we've got, and then divvy up the money between their siblings or whoever is going to be left, beneficiary. So those are just three quick reasons. There are other reasons as well.
If somebody gets a new job in a new city, they've got to move.
Yeah, they're fed up of their neighbours who've been annoying them. They think, I just want to get out of it and to buy the next property and to sell this property.
There's 101 reasons why people want to
have a quick sale. They're motivated to sell. So you've just got to find those people, and there's plenty of them out there.
Absolutely, and that's the thing about property, is it doesn't matter really where we are in the economic cycle. There's always property you can buy below market value if you look hard enough and you do your research and do you do due diligence. Yeah, and there's always a deal to be made, regardless of where you are or where they are.
Yes.
So
that's BRR, and then obviously flipping as well, both covered. Which are two really good cash flow strategies, especially flipping, because like I said, you got 30 grand. If you do two deals, if you do them in a year, got 60 grand there. You're well on your way to now working towards how can I have something bigger and better like service accommodation or commercial conversion or some of the stuff that we're going to cover. So it gives you a good platform. If everything else gives you good income now, and if you've got a job which pays for your lifestyle, and you've got some disposable income, then this 60 grand now you can save, and quite soon 60 will become 90, become 120, 150, 180, whatever, and then you got a good chunk of money there. Because you've got a secondary income, and as you know, to become wealthy and financially independent, you've got to have more than one stream of income.
Absolutely, and multiple streams of income.
So if you're doing 60 grand over a year, over 3 years, you've done 180, okay? You're now going to use that money to make more money.
Absolutely, and that's the thing, and that grows very, very quickly. And the more money you grow that way, the more money that you can pursue, put in that savings. You can invest more in more deals, do more over time.
Yeah, I mean, there's only two ways to make money, as you know, to keep it very simple, is how do you spend more time and effort to make more money? How do you use the money that you have to make investments for that to make you money? And the smart one is the second one, because that's what good investors do. They use the assets that they have
To pay your
sweat
money.
them to make them money.
Absolutely.
Money while you sleep, as they call it.
Yeah, or passive income, as other people
No
have
such
called
thing
it.
as passive, but yeah,
Well, you've always got to put a bit of work into it.
that's right.
Let's not mislead people there. So we're just going to go take a quick break, but we'll be back after
4 minutes.
4 minutes, and we'll see you on the other side.
Bye for now.
You're listening to Salam Radio, and it's now time for Isha Azan. This Azan is sponsored by Park Foods. Come and see the difference.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم، وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم بك نحيا وبك نموت وإليك المصير. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا.
In the heart of Cambridgeshire, this is Salam Radio.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, and welcome back to the Property Wise show. I'm Kieran Bateman, and I'm here with.
Shaz Nawaz.
we're here talking all about property. And if you want to call or get in touch, you can call us on 01733 602 133, or you can text us on 07411 191 062, or you can comment on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Plenty of ways to get in contact with us, and of course, people will have questions. And feel free, if you don't want to call, like some people don't want to call, by the way, text us or send us a message on Facebook, and we'll be happy to answer them.
Absolutely, always happy to answer people's
That's
questions.
what we're here for.
Here to serve.
So we've covered flipping, and we've covered brrr, which is BRRR.
I do love that strategy.
It works well, doesn't it? I mean, you and I have
does.
seen people use it. I mean, the interesting thing is, because people sometimes ask me, I'm sure they've asked you as well, which one is the best strategy? And the answer is, they all work. Everybody has gone.
I think that's one of my favourite questions, because the answer is very, very broad. It depends. Depends on what works for you.
Yeah, that's right. But if anything done phenomenally well, because people say, which is the best business to have in the world? Well, they all work. Whether you're an accountant, whether you're a solicitor, whether you have a corner shop, whether you got a takeaway, you got a restaurant, you got a letting agency, you're into property, you're selling cars, you're selling windows, you're selling whatever you're selling. You've got a restaurant. Everything works well if you do it well.
Absolutely.
There's no one business, in my view, that's better than any others. Now, people might have a different view on that, by the way, but that's fine. But if you're selling stuff, as long as you learn how to market it properly, how to sell it properly, how to systemize it, how to have processes, how to have good customer service, how to have a good team around you, you can run and create a phenomenal business. And the same with property. All of these strategies we're talking about, every single one standalone works well. I mean, I know people who do BRR who perform better than any other strategy. I know people who do flips perform better than any other strategy. Same with all the others. Single lets are a slower burn, but they require more or less effort usually, and they're more hands-off, to use the word that you use, passive. They are more passive than any other strategy. But if you haven't got time, you're a busy executive, or you've got a business and you've got a family and you've got other things going on in your life, and you think, I just want to make investments and I want the least amount of headache, well, then that works for you, but you're going to make a lower return overall. But if it works for you, then that's cool, because you're still making more than you would do if you weren't doing anything about it. So
Absolutely.
every single strategy works well. The other interesting question, by the way, while I'm on my soapbox, is, and I'm not on that often, as you know, Kieran, only 6 times a day, and it's about
6 times a day. You're being generous.
6 times an hour. Is people say, oh, what's the one thing that I can do? And it's the wrong question to ask. What people should ask is, what are the 254 different things that I ought to do to become successful, or to make it in property, or make it in business, or make it in whatever they want to make it in? Because there's never one thing.
No, there isn't. I think there's that's one of those things that we like to discuss at length, and it comes down to mindset. There's not.
Is that when I talk and you listen, by the way, or the other way around?
When you say I listen, that's being generous.
You pretend you're listening. Yeah.
No, but it is one of those things, though, isn't it? Is that regardless of what strategy you choose, what business you choose, what area of expertise you have, all of them can be successful, and all of those avenues can make an individual successful, wealthy. But success leaves clues, and it's not one thing that makes anyone successful. It's a combination of things. It's a combination of work, understanding, marketing, getting the right people around you, being around the right people in the first place, and all of those factors roll into it and play into it.
Yeah, and I get why people ask that question, by the way, but with respect, I'll say it's trying to say, how can I find the most laziest and easiest way of becoming very successful? Well, if you look at successful people, and it was something that I learned from an American mentor, okay, guru, so to speak, Jim Rohn, and he said, if you look at successful people and you spend a week with them, and by about day 3, you're going to say, no wonder he's so successful. Look at all the things he or she does. He said they're going to wake up at 5 in the morning, okay, and they're going to have their breakfast, and then they're going to program their mind doing a bit of yoga, meditation, reading the Bible or the Quran or whatever they like to do. Okay, by 7 o'clock, okay, they're working up their plan for the day if they haven't done it the night before. Okay, 7:30 they're on email and sorting everything out. Nine
Already
9:30.
working.
9:30. I think now let's do the real work. I've sorted out the emails, and then they do what they've got to do. They haven't been on social media or Facebook or anything up until now, by the way. And then they get all their stuff done until lunch, and then they might go on social media, do the other bits. Afternoon, same again. Marketing, sales calls, doing what they need to do, having meetings with their team members, with their clients, and then when 5:30 everybody's going home, they're still working, or they go home at 6, 6:30, 7 o'clock, have dinner with the kids and the wife if they've got a wife and kids or a partner, and then at 8, 8:30 they're back to work again till 9:30, 10, 11 o'clock. And people might say that's a sad life. That's what it takes to be successful, then. That's what it takes. And that's why that person says, after day 3, no wonder they're so successful. The amount of work they've done in a day, I do in a week.
Yeah, exactly that.
The question should be, what can I do that nobody else is willing to do to achieve what nobody else has done?
Exactly that. And that comes down to something that we touch on a bit every week, and we probably will touch on every week we do this show, is mindset. Mindset is one of the most important things in anything you do.
Yeah, because I mean, it's easy for all of us, including me, and you, Kieran, to think negative.
It is
a natural disposition, whether people believe it or not, or like it or not. It's to think negative. Things are going to go wrong. They're not going to work for me. They don't always work out for me. Everybody's against me. This is happening. That's happening. I haven't got the money. I haven't got the time. I haven't got the expertise. And 101 other things. Okay, it's easy to be negative. It's hard to be positive. You have to actually make an effort.
Actively work at being positive. It's also very easy to make excuses.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't do that. Well, I didn't have time. I had a family thing. I had this. I had that. I had. 101 excuses.
But it's the old thing, isn't it? Making money and making excuses are mutually exclusive, because those who are making money aren't usually making excuses. Those who are making excuses aren't the ones who are making the money. So you just got to put the effort in and be positive. I think this works. There's so many other people who've done it before us. Shaz and Kieran on this show are saying it can be done. Let me ask them some questions. Let me get on the path. We'll obviously share with people resources, training programs if they want to do them, books, webinars, courses, whatever they need. Say, here you go. It's all in front of you now. You've got to put the effort in and do the long, hard miles. See, nobody can run a marathon for you. You want to run a marathon, you've got to do it yourself. But people can train you and show you how to do it, and they can run with you while they're training you, but you're going to have to run the final marathon yourself. That's what this is all about.
Absolutely. And the thing with that is, if you're going to run that marathon, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and run that marathon. You're going to have to put in the time and the effort and all those miles to get to a point where you can run the marathon. Ultimately, it doesn't actually matter whether you run the marathon or not in the end. What matters is your effort and the processes you put in place.
It's the journey, not the destination.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's the journey what defines you, the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, the highs and lows.
The fun bits.
That's right.
Another question on the socials. What is a realistic net return to aim for with single lets? It depends.
It does, and obviously partly here we're talking about below market value. We're talking about how much money you've spent, so whether it's BRR or just buying a property ready made. I think most people will generally say to you, you're aiming for a 4 to 5% return.
Yeah.
Generally speaking. And if you're smart about it, you might get 6%, but it's going to be low because it's a low risk strategy. You know, the market works in a particular way. Okay, the higher the risk, the higher the return. Okay, most people get that, and because single lets are very, very low risk, safe as houses, as we've said before, then the return's lower. If people want to become a bit more enthusiastic and ambitious, then they look at HMOs, where it's a much higher return. If they could look at commercial property, and I know people who go for 6-7% on commercial property. I know people who won't touch it with less than 10%. And as you know, when I'm looking at stuff for commercial property and less than a 12 to 15% return, I'm not even interested in looking at the property deal.
No, absolutely, and that's the thing. You've got to work out what's going to work for you, where you're going to be at, what is enough for you. As I think, as long as all your costs are covered, and as long as you are making money and not losing it, because I've spoken to people where they because they don't view their property business as a business, they've rented out to friends or family or people like that, and they've given them mates rates, and That's all well and good, but when those mates rates just cover the mortgage costs, and then something goes wrong, they've got to foot the bill out of their own pocket. When something needs fixing, or when that person inevitably moves out and they've got a voice, they don't have that bank of backup where they were making money because they were just coasting, and that comes down to not treating it like a proper business. If you're gonna rent out to friends and family, by all means, don't let me stop you. And I think that if you can help someone out in that manner, that's great. But you've got to do it at market rate, because ultimately it's a business.
Otherwise, after month 2 or 3, you're going to start regretting it, and then you got to go back there, put yourself in an embarrassing situation, try and increase the rent, and they're saying, well, I only took the property because it was at £500 or whatever, now you're asking for £700. I can't afford it. It's going to disrupt your relationship. So why not do things properly
to
from the
begin with.
outset, and just think these things through, like we were talking about on the way here. There's something called the law of unintended consequences.
Yes.
And as you were saying, everything has a consequence, and you're right. And it's the consequences you haven't thought about, which come up, and then all of a sudden you think, well, I didn't quite expect this, and then you're snookered.
Yep, you can do whatever you want, but you're not free of consequences.
Absolutely.
You are free to do what you want, though.
Yes. Now, back to the world of property.
Back to the world of property. So, Shaz, I want to get into property, but I don't have quite enough for a deposit because, deposit's quite high, and understandably so. So is there anything I can do to get my foot on that ladder of a property business?
No, Kieran, you're doomed for failure, and I have no answers for you. And stop asking me such ridiculous questions. How can you ever think of getting into the property or getting onto the property ladder without having any money? It just doesn't work. Or does it? There's something called rent to rent, which is fantastic. So it's in a very simple speaking language. This is where you go to a landlord or a property owner. Could be a landlady, but I'm just using landlord as a title as opposed to being gender specific, just to be clear. So you go to a property owner who, let's say, is having trouble renting their property, or has too many voids, or has had problems, and you say, hey, I'll ask you, Kieran, you've got this property on the market for $750. I'll pay you $750. I might even pay you £1,000. Okay, and I'll rent the property from you, but I don't want it for a year or 6 months. I actually want it for 5 years. So I sign an agreement with you, take it for 5 years.
So you're going to sign a 5-year agreement with me,
paying you £1,000 a month, whereas you'd get $750 otherwise, guaranteed rent for 60 months.
Where do I sign?
Exactly. That's what people.
That's a fantastic offer.
I then take over the property, and I might decide, for example, turn it into an HMO. So I'm taking the headache. Okay, I'll have to spend some money on it, doing it up. And I might actually be able to get the landlord to say, can you help me out and spend a bit more money on it? But rather than giving you £1,000, I'll give you £1,250 to £250 every month over the next 60 months to help you recoup some of the initial investment that you've made.
So you're going to essentially give me £500 a month more than I'm asking for at the moment.
If you help me out, refurbish some of the property.
As long as I help you refurbish it.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the savings from where I've been renting this property out. Absolutely, let's do this.
And there you go, you see. And then you're renting it out for the next 5 years, and you've just got to manage it. And now you're making a margin, paying the landlord. They can then, or the property owner, they can then obviously pay for the mortgage if they have a mortgage. They're happy. You manage everything, and there you go. You got cash flow coming in.
Cash flow coming
By
in with very little.
Minimal, if anything, depending on how you structure the deal, and you're on the property ladder.
But how likely is that to happen?
Very likely, because there are lots of people out there who have voids. They've worked with agents, which hasn't quite worked out for them. They've managed themselves, and that hasn't worked out well for them. And they're just thinking, you know what? I just want someone to give me guaranteed rent every single month, because when I went listen to that radio show that Shaz and Kieran were talking about, getting on the property ladder, seemed like a very good idea. And it doesn't right now, by the way, because this is hard work. So people don't want that hard work, so they are happy to give you the property as long as they get guaranteed rent over a number of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And
everybody's different, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. I've found that the most receptive to this idea, in my experience, have been accidental landlords. People who have accidentally found themselves with that extra property and they don't know what to do with it. Someone comes along and says, don't worry, I'll take it off your hands. Not going to buy it off you, you can you can still hold on to it, but I'll rent it off you for a guaranteed amount of time, providing this deal works and I can do X, Y, Z.
It works for both parties. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I know a person in Birmingham. He's got 250 rent-to-rent properties. 250.
250.
It's good going. And that's not the biggest, by the way, but
No,
that's
absolutely not.
just one example that comes to mind. Somebody I was talking to recently. There's people I know who could do 5, 10, 15, 25, 30. You don't need that many, by the way. I mean, we're not going to sit here and go through the numbers, but people did. Once you got 7, 8, 9, you can actually afford to stop working. If you're not like say a £40,000 salary or £50,000 salary, once you got 7 or 8 rent properties, you can afford to do it full time.
And if
Leave
you're
your
not,
job.
if you're not on a £40,000 or £50,000 salary, you're on a £25,000 salary.
Well, then 4 or 5 and
4 or 5, and
you're good to go.
Good to go. 10, and suddenly you've doubled your income.
Absolutely. And now you've got that cash coming in, using for your personal expenditure, and you've got some for savings where you can go back to other landlords, and rather than saying I'll give you 1,250, give them 1,000,
But I'll do the refurb.
you're doing the refurb, or you're saying now I'll buy some singlets, or I'll save this money to invest elsewhere.
And that is the power of property, isn't
And
it?
it changes, and you can get there very, very, very quickly. As you know, I know people who started from ground zero within 2 or 3 years. Okay, they've amassed a huge property portfolio. In fact, just before Christmas, I was with somebody, and they have generated, Kieran, £250,000 in serviced accommodation income, profit, not turnover, sorry. Okay, in 12 months. Phenomenal. And
That's
this person
a
was working.
phenomenal result.
Okay, single mother, was working, and on a average salary. I don't remember the figures. I'm not going to quote one. And she's now making £250,000. Okay, not doing service accommodation as in property she owns. She's doing rent to SA.
Rent to service to... Oh, so you can do that as well.
Absolutely.
So we're not just talking about rent to HMO
or
rent to rent.
singlets, yeah.
Rent to single let. You could rent to any other strategy.
You can do rent to SA. So I take over your property, you take over my property. I might have to offer you a bit more than £1,000 or £1,250 or whatever, because I'm going to generate more. So I've got 2 options. I can say to you, I'll give you a flat fee for your property, and you can have a share of the profits, or I'll give you a bigger number, sign a 5-year deal, turn it into service accommodation, off you go. And that will if in the right area, done in the right way, generate you even more money than standard rent to rent on a single let, or turn it into an HMO.
Well, I mean, this goes back to what we were saying when we were discussing the individual property investment strategies, doesn't it? Is buy to let gets you, say £1,000 a month. HMO, same property as a HMO, gets you maybe double that, maybe 3 times, depending on how you split it up. Service accommodation, 4 times that amount, 5 times that amount.
8, 10, 12 of a single let.
Of
If
the
in
single
the right
let,
area, done properly in the right way, okay, through Airbnb, through Booking.com, through your own marketing, your own reputation, it soon adds up.
And it adds up very, very quickly.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of property, because most people think property is single lets, buy a property, 25% deposit, rent it out, and wait for 3 years, save another 25%. No. That's the real slow way of doing it. And if that works for you, by the way, absolutely fine, because everybody's different. But there are ways you can speed that up very quickly.
And that's one nice thing about property, isn't it? Is there are 100 strategies and they all work, and they can go as fast or as slow as you want to.
Yeah.
If you are ready to hit the ground running, and you want to do your learning, and you're prepared to cut your teeth, you can be from a average paying job to property business owner in less than a year if you put the work in. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That will be a lot of work. You will have to put a lot of work into that, but it's completely doable. And then you get to a point and you get to give up on your job. You get to hand your notice into your boss and go, I'm going into my own business.
But there's a guy who was on my course recently, I think in September, who was working as a management consultant, earning 150 grand a year. And
that's not a bad salary.
That's not a bad salary working in London, but 150 grand a year. Smart guy. And he emailed me saying, I've left my job. I'm going to property full time now.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to make that 150 grand in the next year, 18 months.
And that's fantastic to hear. And I mean,
But big commitment. He's left his job, so now he's taking a big risk, and he's going to make it work.
he's going to have to.
Yeah, he hasn't got any choice.
No.
Yeah, and that's why he's done it this way.
Yeah, I mean, that is a way to do it.
Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? That takes a lot of courage, and I'm not sure everyone would take that route, but
The bigger the risk, the bigger the likely reward.
absolutely, and that's a mindset thing.
But how many times have you seen people think, I had no choice. I had to make it work. I put all the chips down, okay, on red or black or wherever, for one of a better expression. And I had to do this. And if I didn't do it, it was all over. And those are the people who usually end up achieving the most because they see it as having no other choice.
I have yet to meet someone who has done that and not made it work. I don't know about you, but me personally, when someone has gone, okay, the chips are down, this has to work, they found a way. Because if option A hasn't worked, they've gone to option B. If option B hasn't worked, they've gone to option C. And when they get to option C and that's not working, someone says to them, why don't you give up? They say the alphabet's got 26 letters.
Yeah, but if it was George Bernard Shaw, the Irish playwright, who says, the possibilities are numerous once you decide to act and not react. Simple as that. So
Yeah.
the possibilities are numerous. You've got loads of possibilities. You've just got to take action.
And you've got to be disciplined with it.
Yeah.
You know, personal discipline. You can't, and this is something that I experienced, with certainly within my friendship circle, is that, oh, Kieron, are you coming out tonight? Can't, I'm working. Okay. And it became a pattern. I'd get invited out. I'd get invited to,
You're a sad bloke, aren't you, Kieran? I don't hang around with you anymore. You always work here. That's all you do. Work, work, work.
I mean,
miserable you are.
all you do is work.
No, I don't. I have fun.
I enjoy my work.
Do
Does
you?
that count?
I don't see it as work, though.
Oh, wow. Wow.
This is a rabbit hole now, isn't it?
Now we're getting into
No,
semantics.
But the point I was making was what I said out loud is what your friends are thinking, aren't they?
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
what I'm saying to you, by the way.
Yeah,
It's,
no,
Okay,
it's so true.
such a sad guy. He's not fun anymore. He just thinking about making money. He thinks we're not fun. He doesn't want to be around us. He thinks he's better than us. None of that. You don't think any of that. You think
none of that.
I just want to be focused. I've got a plan here, and I'm going to work towards the plan. Because if I don't work towards my own plan, I've got to work towards somebody else's plan, and they've got nothing planned for me.
Exactly that. And the thing is, if you spend, 5, 6, 7 years dedicatedly working towards your own plan, your own future, your own retirement, if you like, that can do more for you and for your future and for your life than working for someone else for the next 20 years, no matter how good of a boss they are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you want to, but with every reward comes a sacrifice. What are you prepared to sacrifice? For me, I was sacrificing nights out and seeing my friends. I still have all of those friends. They're still my friends. They're still
On Facebook, yeah.
yeah, very much so. But I still keep in touch with them, and I still. But if I look at where I am compared to where they are, and I've had this conversation with a number of them, my position is vastly different to where they are. And had I done what they were doing, I would be where they are. And I'm glad I didn't. And that's not a slight on them in any way, shape, or form. I love them dearly.
You had a different plan. Yeah?
But I had a different plan. I wanted to
be
able
somebody else, as in somebody else have things that you don't have at that time.
Absolutely. And I had aspirations, and I wanted to look back and go, actually, that was worth it. And that was my mindset at the time. And I do not regret any second of it.
And then you met me, and it's all been downhill ever since. But
It's been absolutely downhill ever since.
I feel sorry for you.
I feel sorry for you. I mean, you've got to deal with me tomorrow morning.
Car crash, isn't it? Yeah. What did I do wrong to deserve this?
What
Kieran?
did you do to deserve this?
Okay. We'll answer that question next week.
Maybe.
Yeah. Do we have time for another strategy, or should we do a quick recap?
Let's do a quick recap because we've only got a few minutes left.
So from all the ones that we looked at, which one is your best strategy and why?
I think my favourite strategy is probably flips going into brr. But if you're going to do anything and you've got limited funds to start out with, rent to a strategy is incredibly powerful, and I think it's definitely worth looking into for everyone.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. Flips are my favourite though, because I think they get you big lumps of cash very, very quickly, and then you can use that to move on.
And do bigger and better things.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, we've just about run out of time for this week.
Doesn't time go fast when you're having fun?
Goes incredibly fast.
It is, doesn't it? Yeah.
So we will see everyone here next week, and enjoy the week, and we shall cover some more basics of property strategies.
Absolutely. Until next week.
Goodbye. Take
Bye-bye
care.
now. Assalamu alaikum.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Looking for high quality and effective laser hair removal using best in the world laser technology? Here at the Beautiful Truth in Peterborough City Centre,